Could that just put him over the edge?
I'm not too sure. I don't think they did well.
He's a bully.
I'm just so sick and tired. I'm hanging on a wire, a foot over the fire, and it's burning. I can feel it inside. Done with the same cliche. Done with the day after day. There's got to be a way. Now is the time to break the tide. I'll live, I'll die for what is wrong and what is right. I'll take the pain for all the ones without a name. To be invincible, we'll be invincible.
They still have a lot of holes to fill.
He didn't get fired. He didn't get fired. No, he didn't get fired. He never got his contract renewed.
Welcome, everyone, to Season 5, Episode 22 of Two Guys in Hockey Talk. I'm Pawel the Cat, and my co-host,
Evan Rev Reynolds, guys, coming back at you with another jam-packed show. We don't want to take too much time. Make sure you stick around. The first part of the session, we have our guest headliner today. So why don't we just remind everybody, every Wednesday night, 7 p.m., make sure to join us right here on Mountain Standard Time. So our guest tonight's coming from Pacific Standard Time, so that's 1 hour behind us. Just if you're in the East Coast, remember that's 9 o'clock your time if you're in the Eastern Standard Time Zone. And if you're in Europe, you're catching this probably on a replay tomorrow. So guys, glad to have you with us. So before we go to our guest headliner and he comes on, why don't I throw out to you guys that this segment is brought to you by Sports Empire. Go for all your podcast needs. Check out the NBA. Check out the wrestling scene, both AEW and WWE. Check basketball, baseball, NFL, all the controversies. They got it all. So check Key and the gang over there with Gene and a whole bunch of the others. Any chance you get, we are their hockey content. So if you're following from the Sports Empire Network, thanks for joining us. Why don't we go ahead with our guest headliner?
Ooh. Welcome, Connor. Welcome to the show. Appreciate you being on. Thank you. Connor, for every guest that ever comes on the show, we always ask, where did your love of the game first emerge? Or was there a moment in time where someone showed you the game and you fell in love with the game of hockey and now have followed it passionately since?
Well, yeah, first off, thanks for having me, Paul and Evan, and kind of like sad that you didn't mention the time zone changes for my buddies out in Guam in the Navy. But my love really stemmed from being very fortunate growing up. My mom has been a loan officer at a bank called Comerica Bank, and they were a sponsor for Staples Center for a long time before it became crypto. So we got to go to a lot of games and fall in love with the play of like Lou Robitaille, Ziggy Paffey. And that kind of stemmed into me absolutely being a bandwagoner, and I will be the first person to admit it when the Kings went on that 2012 run, and it was just remarkable. And then, of course, they double dipped and had a probably even crazier run in 2014.
That's amazing. Well, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of LA, but I'll let Evan take on the next question.
Yeah, so just so everyone knows, Connor Doyle is writing for the Hockey News. So he is one of their writers. We'll actually get into that, Connor. So you got some new articles that you just got up recently. So one of the ones that you put up, and we just talked about some of this last week with Dubois, the Kings' pathway to success will lean on the play of Dubois. So why don't you fill us in a little bit? We'll get to some of your background story in a little bit, because everyone jumping on right now, they're all asking questions. Some of saying, they doubt that this trade was any good. Now, facing the Edmonton Oilers in a situation where they wanted to win, he was the key cog, in my opinion, scoring that beauty of a goal to kind of put an exclamation mark on, this is my territory. What's your thoughts, and what's your article really talk about?
Yeah, no, great question, Evan. So Dubois did come in to be a difference maker down the middle. I think that's what you saw kind of deteriorate against the last season series against Edmonton when they tried to fill that void with Clint Byfield, Gabe Velarde. Let's be honest, this is a guy that has come in with a kind of, not streaky, but kind of marred past with the two previous organizations he was with, including the one he was drafted with. When he's given the opportunity and when he's playing his game, this guy is a low-end top center in this league, high-end second center, who really can make a difference in the game, and especially when he plays with a snarl. He can be a difference maker. Rob Blake went out on a flyer. He put his tenure at risk, and he is someone that is capable, if the Kings are going to get back into the W column and back in the playoffs for the third season in a row, he's going to have to be a difference maker. And as you saw against the game against Edmonton, not against Buffalo, not that thrashing, you saw him getting matched up a lot of minutes against Leon Draisaitl. If you're newly coached Jim Hiller, you're really giving him a stick tap saying, I'm giving you this responsibility. That's showing a lot of praise and respect to that player. If he can continue his play down the line, the Kings are going to be in good shape.
Okay, so there's been a lot of changes happening, especially behind the bench for the LA Kings. You've got Todd McLellan out. You've got interim leader, head coach Jim Hiller, who's coming in, had some experience with the team, has been really solid, given a chance here. Could be changed in the offseason, depending how well the team does this year. You bring in DJ Smith as an interim, also assistant coach. What did these two guys bring to the team overall in order to help the Kings kind of get past everything and just potentially make an impact in the playoffs?
Yeah, excellent question. DJ Smith did not have the best tenure in Ottawa. I think since 2017, they really haven't been a playoff contending team. Definitely a tough run of luck. Don't know how much he can really have changed that path. That's all, retrospective at this point. But from everything I've read and everything I've heard from around the organization, DJ Smith is one of the most vocal guys. He's friendly. He's the type of guy that passes the beer test. Would you sit down and have a beer with this guy? Absolutely. Does that matter with coaching? Probably not as much, but he's a very vocal and very interpersonal coach. He's a player's coach. And you add this with a guy who's already been in the organization in Jim Hiller. This is a good duo for the Kings moving forward. They're going to have to be paying Todd McLellan through next season. He got that extension before he got fired. So, they weren't looking for external options because you don't want systematic changes. You weren't going to change up the 1-3-1 because then you would have to change that in Ontario as well for these young guys coming up. They're going to stick to their system. Jim Hiller has had an incredible amount of success running special teams in this league, improving power plays wherever he goes. And so this is kind of sharing the responsibility for 5-on-5 play with DJ Smith, as he's recently mentioned. And this is two guys that can take this team to the next step, and they needed a fresh voice.
Excellent. So we forgot something, Connor. We like to do a little cheers. So see if I can open this up. Oh man, I'm not doing very good here, guys.
It's okay.
Just a little slow on the ball tonight.
Use your mouth.
Right.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys. If you're jumping in, we have Connor Doyle. You can reach him at Lord of the Rinks. He's a contributing writer for the Hockey News. And you can go read his articles over at the Hockey News. Check him out on X. Some of you guys still call it Twitter. By the way, it's posts now. It's not actual tweets, which I appreciate. I always felt a little weird calling something a tweet. I never tweet. The last time I tweeted was with singing Rock and Rob and tweet, twiddle, twiddle, But guys, come check out Connor Doyle as we are asking him questions out of Los Angeles. And if you're checking in, so you were just saying, so you got some buddies. Do you want to throw a shout out to them over in where?
Over in Guam. I got some buddies still from the Navy in Guam. They're having a good time out there, hopefully avoiding trouble and territorial birds.
Well, we appreciate and salute you for all your service and everything you've done for not only America, but for Canada as well. So back to the nitty gritty. So you're watching.
Well, let me finish the question. I was just doing. I was just advertising. That's all. Okay. Yeah. No, I got to throw it in for our sponsors, man. Okay, so let me throw another question out there. This is after the Edmonton game. So the next game they play, it's just a dud. what would happen where they get blown out on their next game after winning such an emotional ride? Like, what are you hearing from around there? Like, is there reasons behind it? Has the coach said something particular? Maybe most people haven't heard. Like, what's their thoughts, or do they just move on and they just take it in stride?
It's purely speculative, but they reported on air that they had, this Super Bowl party over at Alex Iafalo's dad owns a bar out in Buffalo, and they just had the whole place on. They partied. Don't think it's a hangover situation. I don't want to pull that. That's all just conspiracy at this point. But if you look at just the nitty gritty, Buffalo has had their number. Buffalo's had their number in the past probably 18 games in Buffalo. I think they're 17-3-1 against LA in their last 21 games there. Right, they've had their number. I think if there's one team that can break down the 1-3-1, it's a young, talented team that is constantly reloading and regrouping and coming through the neutral zone with speed. And I think that was just evident. This also plays into a larger story that I pushed out today. Right, the Kings are still relying on a 34 and a 36-year-old to handle the toughest and most minutes on the team. Let's be on Anze Kopitar for just 5 seconds or however long it takes me to finish the statement. But imagine matching up against Tage Thompson all night. 6'5", 6'6", with range, has speed, skill. That's exhausting, right? He's doing this at 36 years old. The succession has not happened yet, and there's no real clear path to that right now that the Kings are following.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that, because that was one of the kind of, not necessarily criticisms, but views of the series last year versus Edmonton in the playoffs and even the year before. And one of the reasons why PLD was brought in as this potential center to help him, to eat those minutes up. And we saw what he could do not only in Columbus, especially in that Toronto series in the bubble, but, he was able to be effective in Winnipeg. It's just, for some reason, he either gives it his all or not. How do you go about seeing what can Jim Hiller or any of the other coaches motivating PLD or anyone else? Or is there someone in the system that you think needs an opportunity to be brought in to potentially play maybe second line center or something different, or given a chance?
Yeah, another great question. Dubois seems like he's getting the kind of the prod that's necessary and has really benefited from a new voice. I think his two best games really of the season, he was one of the only bright spots against Buffalo. He had a great game against Edmonton. He's looked good out of the break. I think the coaching change has kind of refreshed him a bit, jolted the team really. But he's really benefited from Jim Hiller thus far. He was the best Kings center against Buffalo. He was excellent and netted the game winner against Edmonton. This is a guy that right now is being consistent, which is something that, he hasn't really been all season. So, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and give him a few more games before we can start saying, oh, well, he's being inconsistent again. But he's currently, small sample size, playing his best hockey of the year. And the second part of your question, he already brought up a guy that I think has been knocking at the door for a while, but has dealt with injuries, and that's Alex Turcotte. He had an incredible game versus Nashville. Was it a goal and assist? I mean, he's a +3. He looks solid. He scored a great goal. He's never going to live up to that top 5 spot he's drafted in, but this is a guy that could really take some of the minutes away from that center depth and play it effectively. Because currently they're in a situation where they brought in Deneau a couple years ago to really shelter that second line center role so that Byfield could develop. But Byfield has been moved to the wing, which is good for his development, but he's not taking draws. He's not going up against Claude Giroux. He's not going up against Sidney Crosby. He's not learning the game as a center iceman in this National Hockey League. And as all three of us know, this is not a learning league. This league will burn you. Right? You go to the AHL, you go to Europe, that's where you go learn. But when you come in the NHL, you don't learn, you get burned. But and I guess you could also say you learn from being burned. But yeah, I would say that if Byfield can move to center in the next couple of years, that works out for the Kings. But right now they're in a winning mode and they're in a really tough and tight predicament.
So let
me just follow this up, because you made some points and I'll get Evan to talk. So Byfield has been an interesting kind of development because he has struggled to get there. But this season, with 48 games under his belt, he's got 16 goals and 22 assists. He's getting there. He's +16. He's really kind of started making an impact as what he was. And I'll let Evan get to his question. But I think what people are seeing is that even though it's not a development league, like you want to be ready to go, you can't, and I hear this all the time, as soon as a guy is drafted and even plays a game or two or a season, oh, he's a bust because he performed so poorly. Well, it doesn't happen immediately. Neil Yakupov potentially could have been a bust. He had one good season and he really fell off. But Byfield is really coming into his own and really finding his game. And I think that opportunity to develop in the AHL helped him. And he's really come into his own. And, of course, having more minutes and playing with some elite talent. But go ahead, Evan.
Yeah. So what I was going to ask you is, just because you followed the team so closely in writing on with them, I am curious. So my understanding, and maybe with just a few games, catching highlights, 10 minutes, 20 minutes here and there, it's pretty hard because we cover everything hockey, AHL, ECHL, KHL, Sweden, so we do our best. But one of the things that my understanding is, they tried him at center early on, but he was struggling, and that's why he's been put on the wing the last couple of years now. Is that true, or have they really never given him a shot at center because they've been developing on the wing?
There's some emphasis on that, absolutely. Byfield's not a guy that has been really strong on draws, and this has traditionally been a very strong face-off team. Right now, I think they're only 16th in the league and might have dipped. But it was not good on draws. They tried Velarde there, last season. We also forget that Byfield was potentially going to have a breakout performance. Was it 2 years ago? And then he had the ankle injury, and I think it was the last game of preseason. So, this is a guy that's dealt with a lot of adversity, but, that center position is, arguably the second hardest position to come into besides defense. What Brock Faber's doing in Minnesota is uncanny, right? You don't expect guys to come in and dominate that position. Center ice is a very difficult position to learn in this league, and it'll burn you really quick. And, the way that Rob Blake has designed this franchise is that they're in the win now mode. And if Byfield's not going to win you draws down the middle, at or above a 50% rate, then you need to have someone else do it. And I think that was a big push to get a guy like Phil Danault. They got, Pierre-Luc Dubois is not a huge face-off guy, but it's just what he can do when he's on. So, how is he struggling at center? Absolutely. He was playing in the bottom six role when he was playing center, but he is taking strides to be that better center iceman, which is probably not going to be for the rest of this season, maybe next season, from the way they're built.
All right. Well, so I don't know how much you followed the rest of the NHL, but John wanted to know from your thoughts what teams have made huge improvements from last year and can make a potential deep run. Example, Buffalo, Canucks. I know you kind of alluded with that one lopsided record they have with LA, Jets, and what team is struggling more than the Wild or Blackhawks?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think the Canucks haven't really made that much of a drastic improvement. This is a darn good hockey club that had a coaching change last year, caught fire last year, but kind of like how they similarly did the year prior with Bruce Boudreau. Like, coaching changes have been really favorable to Vancouver, but they've just stuck with it. Gave them the room to go move Kuzmenko for Lindholm, and now they're even deeper down the middle. So I don't think that they've made like this drastic improvement. I think they just stayed the course and allowed their superstars to be insulated by other stars. I mean, this is still a team that dresses Brock Besser, Elias Pettersson, who I'll stand by is probably the most underrated player in the league right now, even with the point totals. He is not talked about enough. This is a guy that produced over 100 points last season. He is not talked about enough. He is a special talent out of Vancouver. The Wild, I really wish they maybe would have stuck around with Dean Evison, who was one of my off-season targets. If the Kings were going to move from a coaching change, the Wild still have a lot to figure out. The Wild are still kind of recovering from two major buyouts that changed the face of their franchise. So the Wild are probably another year or two out of it, but they're very fortunate to be able to have like a game-breaking player in Kaprizov to go the route. That's something the Kings lack. The Kings lack a full-fledged superstar. That's the bare minimum. Every team in this league seems to have at least one full-fledged superstar. The Kings are arguably a roster of a bunch of just really good hockey players, but no superstar aspect. So
right.
The Wild have some work to do. But I don't know about any other team struggling unless you're San Jose. But even San Jose picked up from what they started off with. Historically,
you can maybe mention Calgary. To me, the Calgary seems what Vancouver was last year, where it's like they should be a playoff team, but for some reason they can't get it together. And forgetting even Huberdeau's lack of depth scoring or whatnot, he has a hard time. Like the team seems to be obsolete, and they've changed the coach too, right? And traded out some pieces. But Kyle wants to know, and again, I don't know how much information you have about Bruins making a deep playoff run, if you're even a fan of the Bruins, or
So I actually follow most other teams, like and Bruins are kind of like my biggest one. I still stand by the fact that I think they were robbed of the 2013 Stanley Cup. I think that's one of the best made one of the greatest ever made rosters of all time, and that D core too. I mean, I shout out to Corey Crawford for having an incredible series, but the Bruins, they surprise me year after year. I think that they haven't really found that void to fill. I think Pawel has done a great job in the middle for the Bruins, but I just don't see this team built well enough to go deep in the playoffs. I think they're a playoff lock, but Jim Montgomery is a hell of a coach. That lineup is great with the superstar talent like David Pastrnak. For some reason, I don't know what farm or where they're just being able to pick up these goalies, but they seem to have some type of Vezina caliber goaltender year after year, decade after decade. They had a Tim Thomas, Tuukka Rask, and now they have two absolute studs back there. I saw this, it was one of those dangled trade propositions when Edmonton was doing well, but it was like Swayman or Olmark for Draisaitl, and I was like,
oh yeah, so we saw those. Yeah.
You saw that? I was like, yeah, the Bruins for sure. But I see the Bruins being a playoff lock. I just don't see them going that far. I think trying to replace like a David Krejci and Patrice Bergeron is very tough to do. Even though Pawel Zacha, I'll tip my hat, he's done a great job at center.
And we see, and I'll let Evan get a question in just a sec, but Brett is kind of alluding to tell the NHL to bring a professional women's hockey team to Milwaukee. Now, I'm wondering if maybe you can maybe
hang on, did you say a women's hockey team? He didn't say a women's hockey team.
Professional hockey team, sorry.
Oh, I thought I heard you say a women's hockey team.
Maybe I did. I apologize. I just spoke to Milwaukee. I know there's some rumblings.
Women's hockey teams in Canada.
We are not sexist here. We'll take all the hockey teams.
Yeah. So because like Boston, LA is a big sports town. I mean, I am a big fan of the Lakers. It's one of the reasons why I have like the retro colors of the LA Kings jersey. It's one of my favorites. I mean, I followed the Lakers for a very long time, next to the Raptors, who are Canadian, of course. But what are your thoughts of LA potentially, or maybe rumblings about a PWHL team?
Ooh, I mean, that's great because they did the Olympic kind of like series here at crypto.com for a couple months for USA versus Canada. I think there's plenty of interest there to have that. I don't think the WNBA has done really well in LA. I think there's some other leagues that have kind of sagged a bit, but LA is a huge sports town, would absolutely take it. We're talking about other franchises or other organizations, like I don't know if you consider the NCAA, like UCLA and USC, like talk about maybe getting like D1 hockey teams instead of this rec league they have, right? It's an always expanding sports city, and I think that's why you've seen so many teams bounce in and out and always rely on this as like a hot spot or a hotbed of coals for starting a franchise out. I think it would absolutely work here.
Well, Kyle says after you're talking about Boston that so no Bruins parade. Got it. So he's gonna stay at home in the summer and June. Right?
Sorry, Kyle. I mean, like I love the franchise. I love the way that they were built, but when you lose your top two centers and you're lacking that depth, you've had some guys coming in. I think a lot of their prospects didn't pan out from what they stacked up 3 first-round picks after the Milan Lucic trade to the LA. They haven't had a whole lot of prospects fully pan out. And when you're not insulating prospects with veteran talent, like I really like Foligno on the Bruins, did not really care for that Hall trade. Sometimes having too many strong pieces lead them to be kind of, decrepit and not fully functional. So don't fully like the way they're built to go deep in this playoffs. And, Kyle, this is the hardest trophy to win in all sports, and you need an incredible team to do so.
And I know and I'll let Evan get his question, but I know they were after Lindholm, but they were worried about. I know I'm just hosting tonight, but anyways, I know Lindholm was on their bucket list, but it was more of a sign and trade the way Hampus Lindholm, so they would have had 2 Lindholms there.
Oh, yeah, that would have been a little unfair. And shout out to Bruins for doing their research. I'd watched Hampus Lindholm in Anaheim for many years. The guy's a stud. When they picked him up, I think he led the league in plus minus last year on that epic Bruins team. They got a steal out of that because a lot of East Coast reporting, which is dominating hockey journalism for the most part since the dawn of time, they sleep on some of these players from the West Coast. It's just Anaheim. This guy Hampus Lindholm, no, he's a rangy, physical, 2-way defender that can chip in offense, shut down top players. Those are the type of players you need in your top 4 to raise Lord Stanley. Big ad.
I'll let Evan go.
How sweet.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah. He likes taking advantage and taking over the control sometimes. It's a control thing. So, but that's okay. You know what? If he does the work, that's good. Okay. So, by the way, Key's here. Key's one of actually she works on the admin team and part of the group with our Sports Empire sponsor. Hey, Key, what's up? So Key is a Philadelphia folk. She loves Philly everything. Now she loves her Flyers. Obviously, they made a huge turnaround. Give us some of your impressions around what's been happening in Philadelphia this year.
Yeah, I mean, this is an organization that has gone through a lot of change. I think that there are a lot of their names are in rumors, but being able to walk away from the Provorov contract was huge. They took a flyer on Cal Peterson, which, he hasn't been as bad as he was in LA, but this is a team that still has a ton of talent. Travis Konecny is one of my favorite wingers in the NHL. They look good on the wings. I think their D can be cleaned up, but they have a lot of young talent that can make an impact. Are they going to be a playoff team this year? Maybe even next year. But there's a very promising future in Philly. And John Tortorella gets a bad rep. John Tortorella is a damn good coach, and he's a unicorn out there. So if you're a Philly fan, you have a lot to look up to, or your outlook is very sharp, right? We were there. LA was there for a few seasons where it looked very dim, but that's all part of reloading, retooling, and moving forward in this league. So a lot to look forward to in Philly.
Excellent. So I'll bring one more question to get in before Pawel gets in again, because I won't get a word for 10 minutes, and then you'll be gone. No, I'm just bugging you. So I saw Key was in the box, and I wanted you Key to be able to get all the love you can for your Flyers, because they were in the news a lot, and we kind of dropped them off the last few weeks. So the only all-star, love Travis Konecny. Great.
They named Sean Couturier captain today, so big news for them.
Oh, that did happen. I can't believe that slipped out. Another absolute stud who plays the game
and healthy this year.
One of the
So yeah, and John says Flyer fans don't get their hopes up. They're going to find a way to destroy your hopes. That's what John says. Okay, so what I'd like to ask you, and maybe this is going to be obviously just strictly opinion. Right now, and let's specifically speak to the NHL when it comes to professional at the highest league of hockey in the world. So when it comes time to getting attention, it seems like there's an East Coast bias for media, especially when it comes to those that are in the hockey writers, not specifically the hockey news, but like they're a part of the group. And when they're selecting, it's just, there's a bias, it seems, from most fans that are in the West. I know there's West versus East all the time, but is it because they just don't stay up late enough to watch? They watch 5-10 minute highlights, but yet when you're up earlier on the West Coast, you watch more. Like you guys within the writing world, do you have discussions within media and stuff like that, and write journalists and stuff about why it seems to be that bias, or do you think that that's just in our minds?
No, I think that it's implicitly there. Think about the foundation of the NHL. Original 6 franchises are on the East Coast. That's the longest tenured teams are out there. The first West Coast teams in the first expansion draft are the Kings and the Blues. I mean, imagine being the Kings in the late 60s, early 70s, having to go on road trips. I mean, brutal, right? The closest team is St. Louis. So, I mean, most of the media was founded out there. And no, it's absolutely true. I'm thinking 2 seasons ago, I had a work trip out to Florida, and the Kings are playing Edmonton in the playoffs. And as someone that still follows the Kings, I just wanted to be over with. Try staying up till 1 a.m. trying to watch your team lose. I mean, it's tough. So yeah, I think it's a 2-pronged situation where you have that history and the original 6 franchises out there, right? Like, I'm a big conspiracy theorist that the lottery draft always seems to fall onto an original 6 team. Purely conspiracy, but original 6 teams are out there. They've had some of them have almost 100 years of history. That, of course, there's going to be a bias. Of course, there's going to be more prestige to original 6. I mean, think about 10 years ago when they had a Wednesday night hockey rivalry, and almost every game on NBC had to have some original 6 type of matchup. So you don't want to stay up late to watch West Coast hockey or Pacific Standard Time hockey. That's fine. The only name you're going to really pick up on the West Coast is McDavid or Draisaitl because they're a Canadian team. That's fine. A lot of teams like to be slept on. Look at the 2012 Kings.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Good point.
And I mean, John mentions that it's not just hockey; it's NCAA football. I don't know if that's true.
No, I
Um,
think that's absolutely true. But then again, like, sorry, John, but I mean, I'm a UCLA alum, but the Pac-12 is just—it's a quarterbacks conference. It's not a strong conference. UCLA and USC are going to go to the Big Ten and get absolutely mopped. So, you got to live with that.
I think there's some validation in terms of like the dynamics playing in the West versus the East. People talk about the travel is the biggest kind of factor, especially the longer distances, especially since when you have Toronto, Buffalo, Boston, New York also close versus where you're going to Vancouver, you're going here. And John mentions that he's an Oregon fan, and it's painful staying up watching those late games living in North Carolina. I can imagine.
Bless your heart.
I've watched some games over in Europe, and they were late night. In Iceland, I got to watch the playoffs, and they were like at 1, 2 a.m. So they were a little bit much. But who needs to sleep when there's no darkness in Iceland? But
Yeah, but I mean, the players are out there working their tails off. But you know what, Pawel? You were working your tail off, staying up till 2 a.m. watching that game. You deserve some credit too.
I don't think my wife would agree, but sure. Now, I want to bring a topic a little bit back home that Evan loves, and we love talking about prospects and people coming up. And one of the biggest prospects for you guys for LA is Brandt Clarke. I know how intense he is, but beyond him, who we know could potentially be a not only top 4 but top 2 defenseman in the league for the LA Kings. Who else should we be keeping an eye on for LA moving forward in the next 2 to 3 years? And who's developing and who's like, you know what, this guy deserves a shot and maybe an opportunity to play not only this season, but definitely a full-time stint next season?
Yeah, no, great question. Brandt Clarke is going to be the future cornerstone of the LA Kings franchise, regardless if you like his skating or not. He's just an incredible young player, probably, I'd say arguably one of the top prospects in all of hockey. But there's a couple players I think that the hockey world should be more paying attention. One of them is kind of just hiding in the weeds, actually in the NHL right now, and that's Alex Laferriere, right? The other Laferriere. Yeah. This is a guy that is a very good straight line skater, has great hockey sense, good release. He's playing in the NHL now, but he was not expected to make the team this year. He made the team out of camp. He, to me, kind of had the vibes of like an Alex Iafallo when he came in. NCAA player, so he plays no more than 30 to 40 games a year, so he is in that stretch run now, but he's technically 22, still playing his first season. That's a prospect the NHL should be paying more attention to, and one that is still in the minors, even though he's come off of some dual shoulder surgery, is Akil Thomas. Akil Thomas should be well known in Canada for his gold medal winning goal in 2018, 2019. This is an incredible two-way guy. Maybe doesn't have extremely high-end. I see you, John, with Otto Salin. He's a good one too. Doesn't have an extremely high ceiling, but this is a team that has had issues with developing centers, right? Turcotte, Velarde gone, Turcotte still in the weeds. QB's been on the wing. So when you have a guy coming up like Akil Thomas that would fit perfectly as a bottom 6 guy, because Blake Lazat's not going to be there forever as much as he's been the choo-choo train that's been moving along this team.
Yeah, and John, we talked about Quentin a little bit earlier. So, yeah, he's definitely made an impact. I guess the other question – go ahead.
I was just going to mention, John, if you get a chance, go back a little bit further, and you can kind of hear some of the stuff we talked around playing center and wing that Connor spoke to as well. I just want to, before you go to your question, I just want to emphasize that in my Revs top 15 in 2021, I actually was the only one who had Brandt Clarke. I have him ranked at 3 going into that draft. He is a guy that we knew needed development, but his hockey IQ is through the roof. His ability to be that, not just a power play quarterback, but a quarterback, period, and to really see the whole ice and play it. So I'm really excited to see what he's going to be able to bring to the LA Kings.
I mean, as you should. I mean, he dominated the OHL at a kind of a historical clip. I think he was right under 2 points a game. He went over to the Slovak men's professional league, played over there. I think he was at a 0.5 per game pace. He was leading the AHL in scoring for defensemen as a 21-year-old. Well, now he's 21 as a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
He's come up during a time where the Kings haven't had their best stretch in any means. Hasn't really got it, suit up. So he's just been in the press box. But this is a prospect that people should get to knowing a lot more. because he will be in the NHL and he will be wearing a Kings jersey most likely for a long time. Incredible talent, and the biggest thing he gets knocked on is his knee knock skating. He's non-traditional stride, but his east-west vision is superb, and the guy is going to put up some major points in the NHL, and that hasn't happened in a long time from the Kings blue line since Drew Doughty, and Drew Doughty's also, getting up there in age.
Yeah, he's definitely there. He's still a very effective top four defenseman, so I like what I see. Now, I think one of the things that maybe people want to know about is the trade deadline's coming up, and I know that one of the factors that a lot of the insiders have been talking about is goaltending. I know that it's been kind of all over the place. Riddick has really taken being the third goalie, the job, played some pretty solid games in the last little bit. But Talbot, of course, first All-Star, really playing well, above expected. Phoenix Copley there. You traded your other goalie in the offseason to Philadelphia. What are your thoughts about potentially picking up a goalie? Can you pick up a goalie? Should LA just kind of stick with the tandem they have? You had Korpisalo last year. It's been a bit of a roller coaster and Ferris wheel, but at the same time also, you look at someone like Jonathan Quick, who I thought was past his prime, and the way he has played not only versus Edmonton, but a lot of the games really helped Shesterkin in New York and really had a resurgence. If only he was back still with LA, given how well he played in 2012, right? Your thoughts on the goaltending tandem, and what can LA and Rob Blake do?
Yeah, so I'll work backwards on that one, because the Jonathan Quick situation is kind of a mystery, because in the Kings system, they're one of the best and most goalie-friendly systems. They give up very limited, top 3 in the league, high-danger looks, and that's the same case as it was last season. Cal Peterson and Jonathan Quick absolutely sank this team last year. As incredible as an athlete and what he's done for the franchise as Jonathan Quick is, it's absolutely a question mark for me that he goes to New York, who does give up more high-danger looks than the Kings, and yet he's been having this incredible resurgence season. The Kings are not going to have a whole lot of room. They're most likely going to activate their quasi-trade deadline acquisition tomorrow in the possible return of Victor Arvidsson. That's kind of going to be like their internal trade deadline acquisition. And that's going to have to be $4 million in cap space that's going to move. And I think they only have $2 million. So someone's going to have to go down, maybe 2 guys. As Rob Blake said in his press conference after the Todd McKellan firing, they're only going to be able to carry one extra player, and that's likely to be a forward or a defenseman. Hopefully they choose Jacob Moverari, but they're not going to have a whole lot of options unless they move a guy like Kaliev, and there's going to be some salary retention because there's rumblings that Kaliev's unhappy in LA. They're very tightly hamstrung right now, and I think if you go back and you watch that press conference with Rob Blake, he does say words like, "I accept full responsibility for my actions." This is sounding like a guy that knows that he's kind of put this team up against the wall. He's built this for success. Success is not happening, but he's kind of put all the cards in on this kind of Vegas mold, right? He went out and got budget goaltending. And I was talking to my colleague Austin Stanovich about this in our podcast the other day. Do they win against Buffalo the other day if they have a Vezina caliber goaltender? Probably not. But if the Kings are going to bring their B game, or any NHL team brings their B game to a hockey game, you need a Vezina caliber goaltending to steal you a game. Is David Riddick and Cam Talbot going to steal you games down the stretch? Probably not. You're going to need your team to be playing and firing on all cylinders every night, and maybe your goalie can have some incredible games. But stealing games, budget goaltending, that was their one question mark for the season. So very Pawel and Evan, very limited options. I think they're going to activate their trade deadline acquisition, you would call it internally, tomorrow against New Jersey with the much needed return of Victor Arvidsson.
Awesome. And I'll let Evan get to the next question, but John is just talking about Francisco Pinelli still on the radar for the Kings. Just a quick thought there.
Yeah, John, great question. Pinelli is also a hell of a player. I think he's probably another year and a half, 2 years out from getting some taste with the Kings, because I think above him you just want to put in a guy like Martin Kromiak. But John, if you've been following the team, you know that this is not a very friendly, natural goal-scoring prospect-friendly team. I mean, look what happened with Kaliev. They want their guys to play 200-foot game, and Francisco Pinelli has that, and he was a natural goal scorer in the OHL with Kitchener, I believe. Great player, but I think he's a little ways off and a little behind the totem pole when you guys got like Akil Thomas knocking out the door and Jared Anderson-Dolan's still holding down a spot in the NHL. So I think he's about a year and a half, 2 years out from getting some NHL ice time.
Okay. Well, we're going to be finishing up here because we're close to the end. We only have too much time for you, so we're each going to take one question each, and I'll defer my question to Evan because I know I've taken a few extras at the beginning.
No. You can do the wrap here. I got one. Mine's going to be fairly easy. At least I think it will be. It won't be in depth. It'll be about your schedule and your planning. And then Pawel, you can do the wrap here before we head out to some of our other stuff we want to complete before the end of the show here. Really appreciate you taking the time, Connor. So just so you guys know, he is with the Hockey News. He is a writer for the Los Angeles Kings and writes, but he follows all things in the NHL. So our session has gone a little longer than I scheduled on here, just because we are talking and we're answering your questions, guys. So keep them coming.
You have a lot of viewership right now coming through all the media.
So if you guys have any other questions, even if it's after Connor's done, put it on there and I'll still shoot them off that way. But remember, you can also follow him at Lords of the Rinks on X or as some of you guys know it as Twitter. So just curious, this could be the very last in-person NHL draft. It's only 4 hours north up in Vegas. Are you going to be able to, are they going to send you up there so at least you can potentially take that in? Or is that something you haven't done yet?
That's something I haven't done yet. If anything, I think it would go to my site editor, Austin Stanovich. He's the one that just got full-fledged Professional Hockey Writers Association credentialed. All that down the line, I believe, like a season or two ago. You know, I'm hopefully on my pathway to getting fully credentialed so I can go to every game. So I think if there's one guy that gets the nod for the LA Kings for the Hockey News, it's going to be Austin Stanovich, and I think there's no one more person that's more deserving. He's the one that gave me my shot at being a contributing writer. He's a site editor. He's been the go-to guy for the Hockey News for the LA Kings, and I don't think there's a better guy that deserves it. So he can go to the last one. That'd be huge.
So throw it in. We just got approved for our media credentials for the draft, so I'm going to actually be there live. So I'd love to meet him and touch base. If you can throw in a good word for us, maybe we can touch base and see how we're. So because I do a top 15, we're literally going to go to the draft and only televise and put on our podcast live the first 15. That's it. The first 15, we'll work off of that. It's kind of a little runoff of what we do here. So
no one comes after 15. That's no.
Well, actually, the truth is, so statistically, we put it out there. I've done this for quite a few times over the years, and statistically, it's the top 15 that bring your superstars. Anything below that is really like a stab in the dark. You're just you're hoping you're getting the next Nicholas Lidstrom or Pavel Datsyuk or something along that line.
Yeah, don't tell that to Braden Point or Nikita Kucherov.
Yeah. Well, there's still a lot, but unfortunately, COVID did not help us in the last few years, so that's really stuck it up. So, all right, I'm going to let you go out with the last question here, Pawel.
I guess I just want to say any bold thought or prediction on the season, what potentially could happen for the remainder of the season, maybe in the playoffs, what you could see, maybe an upset or any predictions that you foresee happening.
Ooh, so first off, I'll just go off of my LA Kings knowledge base. The Kings will make the playoffs. They'll be a wild card team, and they will knock out a Colorado or a Vancouver for a wild card. I think that they have the depth for it, and they can turn it around. I see Edmonton also flaring out again with their lack of depth. I think the East Coast is just uncharacteristically weak this year compared to some West Coast teams. I think Dallas is always a team to watch out for. That is by far one of the most underrated teams because we think about it, they have all three positions. They have a star center, they have star defenseman, and they have an incredible goalie in Jake Oettinger. Watch out for Dallas. They would be my dark horse pick to win it all.
That's who I predicted at the beginning versus New Jersey. New Jersey's not doing so well, so it's got to be somebody else, but I still think Dallas can definitely be this. So thank you so much, Connor, for being on the show. Remember, you guys, you can find him at Lord of the Rinks or at the Hockey News. We appreciate everything you've done. We hope to continue to see you in the future on the show, potentially, if we ever invite you, although you know where the questions come from officially now.
Yeah. I really appreciate you guys having me on, and it was a good time. Would love to come back.
Is there anything you want to share, people, where you want people to be on, follow you on Twitter /X to check out your material, because you have some great articles up right now online, but is there any way you want them to go and connect with you?
Yeah, all you guys can go to the Hockey News LA Kings website. We Austin Sanovich and I upload LA Kings articles quite daily. We try to rotate with new articles daily. Sometimes we both produce articles daily. You could always follow me on Twitter. I will push content out on there as well. And we are doing a podcast we started a couple weeks ago. I believe we're going to name it Back at the Crypt, like crypto.com. So you could always listen to us there, and we have special guests on, maybe in the future, 2 guys talking hockey as well.
What you're saying is just one of us.
One guy. We'll just pick one. Separate you two.
Okay, well, awesome. It's been a pleasure and a treat. Thank you so much. We wish you all the best success in the future, and not only this season, but also in future seasons. And good luck to the LA Kings for hopefully a deep playoff run, whether it is Vancouver, Colorado. I'm not going to say Edmonton, but whoever.
Yeah. I see another Edmonton Kings playoff round, man. Get ready. It's going to be war.
I think it's Edmonton Vegas.
Yes, I agree with Pawel. I think you're going to see a classic playoff series with a rematch of Vegas and Edmonton. I think
Colorado would be shaking in the boots if they're going to face off versus LA. Their goaltending is also iffy, but
I don't think they've recovered from letting Kadri walk. I think that 2C has been a void for them, but I will let you guys go. It was a blast. Thank you for having me.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Keep your stick on the ice.
Will do.
Cheers. Excellent, guys. That segment was brought to you by the Sports Empire. Get all your podcasts over at the Sports Empire. Check out your basketball, your football fix, your wrestling, anything you can think of as sports. We are their hockey content. Awesome. Right. That was a great day. Love Connor.
Right. We're going to get into this. Now, this has been beaten to death because it's been going on for a while. But the whole suspension for Morgan Riley after he went in, raised his stick, and hit Ridley Gregg in the face after that slap shot. Evan, my rant is about the fact that people don't know hockey and that there's too much polarization. And I am annoyed for seeing that you can't be both A and or B because you're both wrong. And so the way I saw it is that it was one bad play by Ridley Gregg, who knew exactly what he was doing, and Morgan Riley, who rightfully went and maybe egregiously reacted, but rightfully reacted to the play. And now he got 5-game suspension, which has been very inconsistent with previous suspensions. And don't tell me David Perron is the the basis of this suspension, because he went after the wrong guy and he appealed, but he got 6 games. I don't know your thoughts on this, but this has been going on for the last little bit. I've been reading nonstop on Twitter/X, but it annoys me that people think, oh, there's some code, there's not code. I've heard players say there isn't a code, and other plays there is a code. I've heard people say, listen, that was fine, or you could slap shot, but you shouldn't, blah, 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 all this thing. It happened. It got the hockey world buzzing, and I think there was an overreaction on every side. But your thoughts on Morgan Riley getting 5-game suspension on the hit to Ridley Gregg for the slap shot in the net in that very wild Hockey Night in Canada game on Saturday?
That was crazy, wasn't it? It was absolutely. I actually knew that you did not tell me that you wanted to rant about that specifically, but I had a feeling that would be something that you would get tired of every second or third. I got to say, after the next 2 days, and then even into this morning again, I'm kind of tired of seeing all the posts that are going out around Facebook, especially, and around the X. So I do. Can I just mention, if you have not checked out the post that was put up on X by Matthew Barnaby, he says he loved what Greg did. He says he absolutely loved it. He says he did a slapper baby into the net. He says, do whatever you want and boop the other team off. It's also okay that he says, though, that Riley jumped him, but if it was Barnaby, he would have used his fist, not his stick. So that was his interesting take, because it's the entertainment of the game. Yes. So the whole thing on code, not code, and it's not something for me that I really care about to rant on. So, John, sorry, I see that you got 5 games is plenty. Had no on-ice disciplinary history in his 11-year professional career. Actually, 5 games would be a lot more if you look at Jacob Trouba, who accidentally was falling and hit. I'm trying to think. Frederick,
yeah.
And got nothing. Which
Well, he got a fine. He got a $5,000 fine.
Oh, that to me is nothing. 5,000. So to lose $5 out of your pocket in comparison to you and I losing $5.
I agree. It's inconsistent.
Yeah, but what's that mean?
So I look at you, George Peros, and I say, what are you doing?
So, but I personally love slapping into the net. To know, he knew what he was doing. He was just excited, and he's a little bit, of a rat.
He's the villain. He knows exactly. Fun fact, and you would know this, Evan, because when he was coming up to the draft and he was potentially being picked, what did they compare him to, or a player? You know him out of Boston because we talked a little about him. He's called Brad Marchand. He was compared to a Brad Marchand-like. We know what Brad Marchand can be like, right? Even though he's an elite player, right? And John talks about that under the terms of agreement. Riley's going to forfeit $195, $312, $50.
Ooh,
that's quite a bit of money.
Good numbers, John. Good numbers. Thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you, John. And here's the thing. He is appealing. We'll see what happens because it's going to go straight to Gary Bettman. I don't know if 5 was a little too much. I would say 3 to 4. That's for me. I get it. The stick, he went for the shoulder. It rode up. It came up. I agree it was a suspendable offense, but Ridley knew what he was doing. And so did Morgan Riley. And Morgan Riley was fed up. And you know how people talk about Toronto. They're not tough enough. They get pushed around and stuff like that. You know what's funny? Mr. Ryan Reeves, we had his dad on the show. He made a comment after the whole event happened, and he indicated that he wants to make hockey violent again, that he wanted to get that tattooed on his body, And then he goes out and they play St. Louis, and he gets knocked down by 5'9" Nathan Walker, Aussie Nathan Walker, and didn't respond. So there's definitely banter here. You love it. This is entertainment. It gets the fans fueled up. And what are we talking about today? Even day 4 after everything had happened this weekend. We're talking about what happened between the Battle of Ontario. I love it. I think you guys can let us know your thoughts, but it was a wild thing. I just wanted to rant a little bit about it. And the rant is essentially, it's blown out of proportion in the wrong way, but I love it.
So, just a quick heads up for everybody. So our rant of the night is brought to you by the Kalkaska Battlers of the Michigan Independence Hockey League. They are in their first inaugural season. The league, the Michigan Independence Hockey League, is in its 4th year. So you can check them out on YouTube. They are one of our proud sponsors. So thank you so much in our partnership with the Kalkaska Battlers. That is Pawel's rant of the night.
And John saying part of the game, more views, bring back more fights. I agree. And we've had my
rant.
Go ahead.
My rant, and John just brought it up. He says, go back to his statement. He says more views.
Part of the game. Okay. More views, bring back more fights.
I get it. I'm using this as my lead in to my little bit of a rant that I have. It's not really, it's a rant. It has to do with all these websites that are coming up out of nowhere with a bunch of nobodies that don't know how to write. They don't have a lot of experience. They haven't had any idea in journalism. And what they do is they go out and they speculate and they guess, and then they call everybody an insider. They call themselves an insider, and they're just trying to figure out what they think is happening and their biased opinions, and they use stupid clickbait. Clickbait. I am so sick and tired of clickbait. Don't be, and I so badly want to tell you 3 names specifically, but I'm not gonna, because I don't want you to go to their site, even though you might get mad, because it's going to give them more clicks. So everything in me wants to tell you, but I'm not going to tell you, but I want to tell you, but I'm not going to tell. So yeah, you get it. I am frustrated. Quit putting stupid clickbait out there and acting like a big trade's happening just because you heard it on 32 Thoughts. That doesn't make you the big, just because you mentioned to them, then why don't you put on your clickbait, 32 Thoughts says, put that on. You won't. Why? Because we're not going to click on your article. We're going to go to 32 Thoughts. So be original. Come on when you're out there with that. So that's just my rant of the night.
This is why you can come here every Wednesday night, Evan, and you can get original content, original thoughts, original rants, original Revs Top 15, everything you want every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Here, we got a question here from Dustin. Dustin, welcome. Should the Wings trade? I think trade he needs for Merzlikis from Columbus. They have offense but need goaltending. So I was at that game. I had a blast, Edmonton versus Detroit. It was wild. I didn't realize I was going to stand up so many times. 8 times, I think it was. But I think goaltending is interesting for Detroit because they do have some good quality goaltenders. Lyon did not look good last night. Even overall, he did save the Panthers season last year. And Husso seemed to have sprained something. I could be wrong. I haven't heard anything yet today. Dustin, you can let us know. I don't know if Merzlikins is the guy you want. There are some other goalies. I know there's been rumblings about New Jersey and Calgary with Markstrom. But you look at somebody like Swayman out in Boston. Would he be somebody that Boston would be willing to part with? And of course, Detroit does have some good young pieces that potentially could go over. But of course, Boston's looking for centers. What are you moving, right? Should they trade? I think he's a little expensive, and Columbus would need to retain. For sure, Detroit can still compete and make the playoffs for a second wildcard spot. I think they're still in it, even though they lost, unless things have changed tonight. So I think you should, but I think maybe wait till the offseason because then you're going to have a little bit of an opportunity to get a little bit less off the cap. And you're asking Husso's out again. Oh, he's saying, and Lyon as the starter has earned that. They just need a backup. I agree.
Yeah, Rankins, you don't want to spend that.
I think he's been solid. Like I said, I think he just had a bad game yesterday. But, and I believe you guys had, unless Reimer's not there anymore, I thought he was there. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Dustin. But really, what are you giving up in order to get him? And you just got Kane as well recently. You have a good depth, top 6. What is your back end like, right? And I think Moritz Seider needs someone to play with. I think that's the biggest thing. Who is Moritz Seider playing with? Is it Jeff Petrie? Is it Justin Hall? Like who's the veteran that can help him stabilize there? So that's just my thought on it. Your thoughts, Evan, on Detroit and what they can do?
Justin, I would say James Reimer has played twice since. Yeah, and I think that he was doing really well. They haven't given him enough ice time, and could have been. That would be my concern, Dustin. So around there, I don't think goaltending was not an issue early on. They've kept with 3 goaltenders. That's kept them in.
They came out hot at the beginning of the year. They were one of the hot teams at the beginning of the season.
Now, what I would say is you don't want an expensive backup. You don't want an expensive backup if you're not going to play Reimer and going for someone else. And you should be using that money, I think, on your defense if you're building. So here's an interesting thing. We have lots to get to. We're going to have to go about 5-10 minutes over for us to even get everything in. Guys, get ready for some 2 guys overtime here. So Markstrom, the whole deal was put out there. He hadn't been spoke to. Hey, Gene, man, what's up, man? Great seeing you. Justin, you mentioned 86 save percentage is allowing 4 goals has been terrible. Yeah. I get it. So one of the things with Markstrom that was out there, he said, well, no one's asked me anything. They're going to have discussions before they ask him even the possibilities. They were going back and forth. It's been reported by some of the actual insiders through Sportsnet and TSN and other groups. I won't get into the specifics of it, but basically they're saying they don't think the deal will come back. I don't think it's off the table. I think it's still there. And Markstrom has been made aware that they're talking, but they're not asking him because unless something's actually valuable, but they're asking too much. And I think they're gambling right now, and they should be careful with what they're gambling because they may get nothing in the end when you got a guy with a big contract still, and he's got some time left on. He's got another year, I believe, one more year left. So but hey, I never even thought of this, Dustin, but what about Markstrom? Because that could be a player I could see Stevie Yzerman working with. And you got a rebuilding team that could use maybe some of the assets that Detroit has. So maybe there's even a potential bigger piece where someone like Noah Hannafin could go to Detroit with Markstrom, unload some cap, pick up some stuff, send some guys back. This is pure speculation. So please, right now, I've been quoted on a couple of those fake sites. They go, oh, Evan is this insider and he's sharing this information. And I am not an insider. I get information from people. I try to take it and I hypothetically look at it. Please do not think that I am trying to say I am. I'm just telling you what I actually hear. And right now, never heard any of this about Detroit and Calgary. So
I think you're an insider by sitting inside your bubble in your room where your studio, where you just kind of sit on your computer, but yeah. And
however, I
Dustin
will
says,
say that most of the stuff that I mentioned and I learned about is
so it's, you know what's funny about Peter Mrazek? He's been phenomenal for Chicago, given how weak that team is at the bottom of the standings. And of course, we know they're in a rebuild, and he has put up some pretty solid numbers. I want to say between 909 and 911 he's been at. So it's been interesting. And the truth is, as John says, Evan has a time machine to get the inside news. So there you go, Evan. That's your skill and ability.
So just so you guys know, thanks for it. When I'm talking, it's making the connections with guys like Connor today, our guest, if you guys didn't catch him from the Hockey News. Just getting some little insights from here, getting insights from scouts. You guys will see all the guests that we have on, and building a network of people gives you an idea. But one thing that you're not going to hear, we will say we're speculating. We will say this is an idea. And a lot of times, though, when you hear from a scout, you hear from an agent, you hear from a player, you hear from the writers, some people that are there. It starts adding up that after a while, and you can do deduction and you figure things out, right? It's with it. So we got
Maurice, salute to you guys, the absolute best. Well, thank you. We appreciate it. But really, it's one guy and a second. But go ahead.
Yeah. So, guys, thank you. I am the one guy. That's my second. Hang on. There he is. Why don't we jump over? I want to touch in. This is the last segment that I have on the Revs Top 15 for my numbers. It's been brought to you by Penny Billionaires, guys. They are our intro song and our exit song for Invincible. Check them out. Electronic fused hard rock band. They are incredible. Two guys making it work. So check them out. Penny Billionaires.
Great album. Hard rock.
You guys the 15th rank. So first of all, I want to just put something out there. When I give my rankings are what I think they will end their career with. So you can't just look in the first and the mock drafts, or it's not a mock draft where I think that they're going to be picked. It's not what I think they're going to be in 5 years. Craig Button, when he puts his out, it's a 5 year saying who will be the best in the first 5 years. Mine is saying when they finish their career. So you got to look back at least 10 to 20 years on some of the people that I put out my listings, as well as right now, I don't have it out there. Someone asked, I had a few people send and say, I don't see it listed. I will put a list out now after my 15th, but these were based off of already a month and a half ago. There has been a few slight changes, and I will be now going in about another month and a half and redoing it. And then I will put it out in the early April, my listing already for what I think we're looking at moving into the actual draft based on that. And I already have a couple people that have slipped out and a couple people have come in. All right. So number 15, I have him put in place. His name is Zaka Boisvert. So Zaka Boisvert, he is playing in the USHL, that's the United States Hockey League. So that's kind of like your Canadian Junior Hockey League, essentially, without the same rules, or more like in the ongoing controversy with the BCHL in Canada, for those that are in Canada. I know we have a lot of Americans on here tonight, so I won't spend a lot of time around Canada stuff, information. So Zaka Boisvert is standing at 6'2". He weighs at 180 pounds going into his draft year, and he makes plays in stride. It's like his vision for the ice, he sees the next play before it's even ready to take off to the next level here. He is a center also. That makes him more valuable out there. He doesn't require a lot of time and space to be an effective point producer. This guy has done well. I have followed him back since the Brick Invitational. The Brick Invitational has provided guys to you guys. Like I actually got to witness at U11, Cole Caulfield and Jack Hughes playing at the Brick Invitational because it's in my home area. He played for the Montreal Ice Storm. He had 4 points in the 6 games. I did get to see him in 2015 play. He has continued to get a good trajectory. And as a 16-year-old going into the United States Hockey League, as a 17-year-old going in 41 games, he's got 45 points. But the key is he's got 27 goals. Way more goals than assists. And that was very common also when he was playing in 15U for Mount St. Charles, where he was putting up, for example, in a 94-point season at 15 years old, He put up 51 goals in 56 games. This guy can score goals and he can play well. So you guys got to check him out. He's my number 15, Zach Boisvert for the EVs, the REVs top 15 prospect list.
Well, and thank you for sharing that, because we all know that goals cost at a premium. So I know that that's something that teams look often on. Go ahead, Evan.
So last week we talked, because we took a little bit of time off, and we talked about Gavin McKenna. I just want to give some quick stats and we'll move on. So Gavin McKenna is not till 2026 to be drafted. Pawel and I are going to be able to see him on Monday. Hopefully, knock on wood, he's going to be there. Even though he's against my hometown, I will be cheering on just points by Gavin McKenna. Listen, 13 goals. Remember, he's 16 years old, playing in a league that mostly has 19, 20-year-olds. He has 43 points, 20 games. 43 points in his last 20 games since Caden Lindstrom went down. It's picked up his ice time. He's obviously got more because of that injury. The guy he just, 3.5 weeks ago, he just turned 16 years old, playing like he got in. The exceptional stat. I mean, this guy is amazing, Gavin McKenna, and he's out of Whitehorse, Yukon. So, hey, great. If you're from the Yukon, you got someone repping you now. So that's pretty exciting.
Awesome. Well, we're going to be finishing up here at the end of the night. There's quite a bit. We are always known as Two Guys in Overtime. We're going to have to patent that name because we seem to always go over the overtime that we have allotted to. But one final thing I wanted to mention before you can finish off and end the show, and anything else you want to bring up, Evan, is there's a little bit of a thing that emerged that wasn't as big known. And I know we talked about Columbus. There's a local podcast there. And it talked about essentially Patrick Laine. And we all know that he's been in the Players Assistance Program. And there were some offhanded comments made by that podcast about Patrick Laine. And they're a little bit sour in terms of how they were said and what was said. And I want to go out on a limb and say, you have to understand the pressures of playing, regardless of whatever market. Playing hockey is a big deal. And when you play on that big stage and you have to deal with something, and we look at someone like, and I will always go back to Spencer Knight. It wasn't substance abuse. It wasn't drugs. It was just the pressure of playing in a big stage, overwhelmed and everything, and the anxiety that you deal with. And maybe Patrick Laine is dealing with that. And to put people down for the fact that he had to go get assistance from the program, it's kind of a lowbrow. Like, I don't like it. We want to build people up here on the show. We want to invite everyone. We know the struggles of playing in the big league. Now, I myself have never played, so I can't speculate as to what it is, but I know the importance of playing on the big stage. And so you have to understand, this is one of the best players in the NHL. To put him down like that, that's not cool. So we want to shout out Patrick Laine, who's one of the most electric players in the game, can score a beautiful goal if you need it, and plays for the beautiful Columbus Blue Jackets, who I look forward to one day seeing that cannon live in action. And that's all I want to say. Just be respectful. We don't want to put anyone down. You may not like every opinion. You may disagree, but be respectful. That's my thought.
Absolutely. Okay, so two things I just wanted to touch in on. This one's really quick, just a quick update. If you're following the KHL, we try to bring information. You see, I have an old Torpedo jersey. That was Pawel Brendel that played for the Torpedo back in the day. So I want to bring recognition to Alexander Nikishin. So he is on a record-setting pace right now in the KHL for a U23 defenseman. So when I say U23, he is only 22 right now. So very important to recognize that. His birthday is in October. So that means it's just passed recently. So even though it's a U23, so even 1 year older, right now he has in 63 games in the KHL as a defenseman, he has 54 points.
Wow.
54 points. Now he is property of the Carolina Hurricanes. He is unsigned right now, but he is property of the Carolina Hurricanes. They have this potential guy, 216 pounds, and 6'4".
Boy.
So Alexander Nikishin, you guys want to pay attention to, because right now he is making strides and he's going places. Even last year he had 55 and 65 games. So it's
Solid.
been amazing.
Top 6 guy.
The last thing that I want to bring out, so I have been really tough on Slafkovsky. I have been one of the toughest fans on him because of going first overall. And I believe that when you've been tough on someone and they prove you wrong, you need to say, now he hasn't 100% proven me wrong. He's still got more work to go. But can I give you the tale of the tape? Okay. Let me give you, if I said, ready this? I'm looking down at my numbers here.
Out there at me.
Another number 1 overall had 14 goals and 37 points with 5 power play goals in 92 NHL games. So 37 points with 14 goals in 92, their very first 92 games. This is another player. Slafkovsky has 15 goals and 37 points as well. 1 more power play goal in the same 92 NHL games. You know who that is? Jack Hughes of the New Jersey Devils.
Wow.
Same age, same time, same points in the first 92 games. And I did not think Jack was going to turn out the way he has. I thought he'd be more like Nico, to be honest with you. I did not think he'd turn into a superstar player, which he has. So he is on point pace right now for 67 points based on his last 22 games, which is a good sample size for Slafkovsky. So Montreal fans, I'd like to apologize. Get behind this player. Here's the difference
Only
between him.
If Kirby Dach could stay healthy, like that would be a very deadly team. So good luck to that. I do want to announce that it's been rumored now. It's been kind of announced that the Blue Jackets could potentially host the 2025 Stadium Series game versus the Red Wings at the OSU campus. So that's going to be interesting. So congrats to Columbus, because that'd be fun to watch them.
The only last thing I'd like to just kind of mention really quick is next week, stay tuned. We have our special guests. So Sarah Hillary will be on with New Brunswick. She is in charge, the head coach of the ladies team. She will be being pre-recorded about 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours earlier. I will be pre-recording her on for the show. So if you have any questions you'd like us to ask in women's hockey for her out in New Brunswick, they are a strong powerhouse out there. They've done well over the years in women's hockey, and we want to continue to promote women's hockey. I'm really interested to hear her opinion on developing, because when we talked to Howie Draper originally before the PWHL happened and he became their new coach, he talked about his focus was just education and making sure everyone had even time. But now that you're developing people also for a possible career in hockey, will this change coaching style? So we're going to ask Sarah, if you're watching tonight or catching us on a replay, we're going to ask that question, as well as next week. I want to give more of an update. There has been updates. So the Lost Trucker had a conversation with me yesterday, and Zylstra, and had talked to me that she had been hearing stuff around the NCAA and the CHL and mergers and possibilities of eligibility. I went in, I checked as much as I could for some of the folks that I do know and connect. I'm not getting anything that's new information, but I have got some stuff that's come out, and we'll talk about next week. David Quinn, who is a former Boston coach. He's coached in the AHL, he's been assistant coach. He is the San Jose's head coach, and he has some big opinions. We'll talk around that next week after our show with Sarah. So that should be an exciting show. So make sure you guys join in.
Thank you once again for tuning in. We are here every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We thank Connor for coming on the show. We appreciated his insight, not only into LA and the inner workings of that, but also all around the league and everything he knew. He was a wonderful guest. We appreciate it. We
awesome.
Thanks, Connor. Facebook, Twitter /X, YouTube. Make sure to give us a follow, like, share, subscribe. We appreciate everything you guys do, all the likes, all the comments. You guys make this show possible every week. We wouldn't be here without you guys. So thank you so much. Once again, it's been a ring-a-ding-dandy show, as Evan likes to say. Happy Valentine's Day. We hope that you get to spend it with loved ones, multiple, whatever that looks like. And we will be back here next week with another great interview. Any final thoughts, Evan?
No, just I want to throw one last final throw because we didn't have some of our other segments that we normally have on to JR Web Designs, our partner that gets our website up. You can go check out all our articles, as Pawel has already mentioned. Go check out. Pavel's been doing a good job of keeping things running there for us while some of us are down and out.
What is that?
I am working on stuff. So
at the end of
just
the show, have you all tuned out?
I heads out. I've been working on. We have a new logo change that is coming. That you guys will start noticing some of our background stuff, as well as I'm going to be setting up a few jerseys, Pavel, myself, and maybe a couple of you if you're wanting. Our SKU code is going to be actually up on the arm badge. That'll take you right to our website, which is made by JR Web Designs. Incredible price, guys. So if you want your own fun site, you want a site for your company, you want a site to send out, go through JR Web Designs, check them out. Man, it's been a blast again, but as we say every week, in the meantime and in between time,
keep your sticks on the ice. Stay safe. Love you guys.
Cheers. Could that just put him over the edge?
I'm not too sure. I don't think they did well.
He's a bully.
I'm just so sick and tired. I'm hanging on a wire, a foot over the fire, and it's burning. I can feel it inside. Done with the same cliche. Done with the day after day. There's got to be a way. Now is the time to break the tide. I'll live, I'll die for what is wrong and what is right. I'll take the pain for all the ones without a name. To be invincible, we'll be invincible.
They still have a lot of holes to fill.
He didn't get fired.